Welcome to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke, and today's guest is Gemma Norris. She is a health therapist, founder of the Infinity Hub, and host of the Voice podcast. Her work is focused on holistic well-being, soul health, and planetary well-being. And today we'll discuss the rise of the divine feminine and what role it plays in helping us remember who we are. Gemma, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you for having me.
I'm looking forward to discussing the rise of the divine feminine. But before we do that, I do believe this is the first time I've heard about planetary well-being. Tell us a little bit more about that.
How I believe in what we're here for is to heal our planet through many aspects. We pretty much know what needs to be done with our planet in terms of toxicity. However, we heal our planet through our healing ourselves, and how we take that individually through our health. So we individually, collectively are within this energy field that we're holding what I believe is a massive plaque of fear that free will has created through thousands of years or generations and civilizations. And we are here to shift that low vibration. And we do that through our health.
To shift from fear to love. Or is it something else?
To love. Yeah,
right.
Everything for me, I believe, comes back to love, to love yourself and accept yourself. That vibration, which is actually the same vibration as gold, the frequency.
All right. I like that. I think that's the first time I've heard gold being the same frequency. Did you say it's the same frequency of love? Did I get that right?
Yeah, so it's about 520 hertz. And when you look at gold, it's the same banding, the same frequency as love. So the soft ego frequencies that music were based on 520. And so gold itself is actually the same frequency.
Music based on 520. I played guitar in bands when I was younger, and the way I was taught was that basically everything we did was in 440. I've also heard about music composed in 432. And again, this is completely new to me, but you're saying there's music that is composed in 520?
It was the soft ego frequencies, if I pronounce that correctly, and that's to do with the variations of different frequencies. Like 432 is very healing as well, and 520 is another healing vibration to work music through. That's not my field of expertise, but in terms of the research and what I have looked into, that is where the vibrations, which you can correlate to emotions as well. So emotions will have a frequency, and sounds have their various frequencies, and it ultimately comes back to the energetic frequency that we're vibrating and resonating.
Isn't it true also that the frequencies of sound and sight are quite wide, and what we as humans are able to access is actually a very narrow sliver, for a lack of a better description, of those frequencies? Is that true?
Yeah, so in terms of sight, I mean, you've got the visible light spectrum, and that's it. It's very small. And then you go beyond that, don't you? And actually, interestingly, a bee can see beyond what we can see. And it's the variations of light that emanates around flowers and that vibration. At the moment, I'm saying this, I'm getting this intuitively sense of just hang on a minute, just hold that. I think our brains have the capacity, and our hearts have the capacity to see greater. We have the potential to see beyond that, but it's not necessarily from our minds. It's actually our hearts that will allow us to see that greater vibration, that frequency.
In the heart, but not the mind. Okay. Yeah. I'll buy that. That makes sense to me. Now, the Infinity Hub, how did that start? And otherwise, how did you find yourself on this path?
So I've been in health and wellbeing for quite some time now, and just purely from the interest of actually Reiki, energy healing. And then that just took me down the process of anatomy and physiology, and just got completely fascinated by the body and the miracle that it is. And you can never get bored by understanding in the body in the detail that it is. And it was literally COVID that struck. And for me, because I wasn't allowed to work on people because of the sort of lack of contact that you were allowed, I was actually getting really quite frustrated that I couldn't help people but also of the narrative that was going out there, that you had to be held in fear, nothing you could do until you had these miracle vaccines come along. And I didn't like that story. I didn't like that narrative, because there's so much more you can do. And this is how I really have started to understand, is that actually you can look at a negative and you can either stay in that fear vibration and really fight it, or you go, well, there's a negative there, so there must be a positive, because the negative to be present, a positive has to be. I'm going to find the positive. And what came to me really then was, I can only explain as divine intervention, was to say, create a health empowerment. And it was just this real drive that I wanted to create, was to empower other people through their own awareness and choices.
So you learned about energy healing and Reiki, and I can't help but notice that many intuitives tell me that the discovery of energy healing and Reiki, and even sometimes even shamanism, is their entry point to the intuitive world. Do you find that as well in your work and your surroundings?
I think Reiki holds more of a boundary to be able to allow you to access it. I think we're accessing it a lot, but we don't know it. We have that intuition, we have that gut instinct, we have that inner knowing, yet we don't tend to value it so much. When you have something like shamanism or Reiki, you sort of understand it. So it's like an essence that you're holding it as a boundary. So yes, it's once you've kind of recognized that you're not just making it up, that there's something of deep value within you, you start to create that journey to understand more.
All right. So it's not my imagination. That does come up quite a bit. And it can be something as innocent as going to get a massage or something similar, and you find out that the practitioner has other modalities, and next thing you know, you're seeing sparkles and, all kinds of otherworldly stuff, and you start to think, wow, what exactly is this? And maybe I should learn about it.
And that's your universe, probably your soul, your guide, taking you to that space when you've softened to allow yourself to trust that. And
okay.
And then next thing you know, you've got that link with somebody else that's then opened another aspect of you.
From energy healing and Reiki to the rise of the feminine, which is that the same thing as a divine feminine, or is that something else?
So this is everything that I'm going to talk about, is how I perceive things, or how I sort of understand it and how I kind of process it. So the rise of the feminine is still the same as the divine feminine. Yet it's the individual and the collective. So we are all individually experiencing the divine rising of the feminine collectively. And for it to happen, it's for all of us to start to acknowledge it and accept it and create that process. And for me, the rising of the feminine is our hidden aspects. It's our sacred wisdom that's coming back to us.
It's coming back. So that implies that the divine feminine was at some point in the history of mankind at a much higher point, for lack of a better description. It seems to also recall discussions about ancient civilizations, which I think we're going to talk about later. How did you come to really discover the divine feminine, or were you always aware of it?
No, I would say I've certainly not been always aware of it. There's been aspects of me that just intuitively knew certain things would happen when I was younger, even, for instance, when I was 7, and I just knew deja vu was parallel universes. I mean, I was 7, I didn't even know what parallel universes were. However, I would say with COVID, these last 3 years has been very significant in terms of, I think, having that stillness that we all had put upon us was moments of when you can start to access that feminine, that innate wisdom, because we're so conditioned to be busy, and somehow we all think there's something we've got to get to. There's like an end goal, so we've got to rush there and get it as quickly as we possibly can. So we're heavily in a very shadowed version of our masculine energy. So when that got literally curtailed, people, once they got probably through that initial wave of fear, there was enabling them to actually start to slow down. And this is when soul, the divine, started to catch up. And this is why a lot of people have made lots of different choices to what serves them joy. People have made a lot of life decisions, relationship decisions, work decisions. So, yeah.
All right. Now, you had a trip to Sardinia that apparently had a profound impact, which obviously influences the path you're on now. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, that place is amazing, Johnny. So I went there only June this year. And before then, I was channeling when I was doing my work and meditations and a different language, which I had no understanding what it was, but it felt very earth-like. So I would get drawn to the goddess Isis and Mother Earth. It felt very kind of deep, sort of that kind of vibration that was talking back up to me. That part of me is going, am I going mad here? I'm talking a different language.
Probably a good sign.
Yes. And I think good to be able to question it, but also to accept it. So anyway, fast forward, get to Sardinia, literally land the 20th of June, get to the 21st, which is summer solstice. And I could feel the vibration of Sardinia within my hara, within like that. So you have a chakra, like just below your navel, between your sacrum. And I could sense the energy of her basically. And for me, she is Atlantean. She has this essence of very divine feminine. I didn't see the sacred sites, but there's many sites that are designed for the female genitals, basically. It's all very sacred sites that people would go within, basically. So heading through like the vulva and then the clitoris. So it's a lot set up for that. But for me, I could just feel this fire energy, this power that's within her. And it's surrounded with mountains, and they would have expected an island like that to be actually volcanic. But for me, I just knew that there were actually mountains, but it flooded, which goes back to the whole stories of Atlantean or, Noah and the Ark, all these mass of civilizations and mythology that have come back to there was a mass flooding at some point on our world.
Atlantis, divine feminine, ascension, these are things that we're hearing a lot about these days. Now, especially the Atlantis factor is really, really fascinating. Other than channeling, do you have perhaps past life memories about Atlantis, or is it basically just imagery or perhaps beings that you channeled?
This has happened a lot stronger as well since being in Sardinia. I was channeling, but also drawing sacred geometry shapes in the sand, which fortunately for me, there was a gentleman there that understood what I was doing and knew that I was actually speaking Sardinian and drawing Greek mythology, which was linking to the seeds of the dead, which was the pomegranate where Persephone, the maiden energy, got taken. So in answer to your question, for me, it was just like an inner knowing. Actually, where I've had past lives, it felt separate, but the emotion was with me. With me, this time forward, it felt just like me. It was just a part of me that was sharing something different. It didn't feel separate. And growing from then, this Atlantean, I have certainly gone back as a high priestess this last month, especially with the Lion's Gate that we've just experienced in August. It was very powerful and really feel that once a high priestess, but could sense the separation from the high priest, which is when I got taken to when it started to fall and the fear that came from that. And that's when the civilization started to fall down, basically, because of that fear.
Which we've heard about many times. How long ago do you suppose this was? Any idea?
So I have no idea.
It's more than 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's saying like 25,000, this sort of a number. It's quite some...
We're going way back.
Considerable amount of time.
From your experience with channeling or an inner knowing, do you have a glimpse into what the religious practices were perhaps at that time, or not necessarily?
I haven't. However, what I can sense was there was a lot of the connection to Mother Earth. So this is the fifth element. So Earth has this capacity to create. It has this very powerful energy that creates life here. The only way I can sort of understand was that men and women were equal. And it was perceived, but this is when it started to go wrong, was that women had more power because they were able to create life and they had that access to this fertile energy, the ability to create life itself and the energy of the earth itself. But the female couldn't access that without the male. Even though the female was accessing very high energetic vibrations, it was only because the male held that place, the masculine. So the feminine was accessing this pure energy, this power, but it was because the masculine was being able to hold that space. However, it started to fall apart because of the fear, the masculine fear of the feminine having that power. And that's when it started to chip away.
The reason I bring that up is because when you talk about how Mother Earth had, and obviously still does have power, that seems to be consistent with what we hear from people who practice shamanism. And another thing that came up not so long ago, the church, Catholic Church, has been suppressing our mystic and shamanic past for centuries. It doesn't come up every day, but whenever I talk to somebody that is either a mystic or a shaman or both, they seem to get it pretty much right away. So what is your insight into that?
When you look into that was separation. So I'd bounce back to High Priest Atlantean, because it was at that point that high priests were setting themselves up as they were the power to connect through. And this is what we have seen with religion that has said that you can only access your power via us. And people gave away their power. People came into that and decided that was the truth, and they gave away, and they actually willingly disempowered themselves. And this is what I'm seeing, that actually we're shifting that now. We're actually here to re-empower ourselves. And definitely the religion took away that ability to continue what they've known, their connection to the planet, the connection to the moon and to the stars, and to really recognize that innate wisdom that's within us and around us, which the Egyptians would follow. As you see, in terms of all of astrology, everything's sort of set up according to sort of signs and sort of key moments of our heritage there. And definitely, you even get churches being put on key ritual sites, which would have been used. And so it was kind of like for me, it feels like it's a clamping down, so you've got ley lines which hold the energy of the earth, which a lot of churches are actually placed on those. And you'll find certain churches will be placed in those key areas, and even wells or places where pagans would have had rituals, a church got slapped on. So it's kind of like, this is your route now of connection, rather than through the earth and through their bodies themselves. And I think the lid's coming off that. And I think our dear Queen that passed over a year ago, I see that's also going to be coming off, that lid that's going to be coming off, in terms of how people have been suppressed and disempowered.
So you would agree with the fact that the church has, for actually millennia, they've been suppressing our mystic and shamanic past.
Yeah, when you read back, you look back, it was the Romans, a lot of that started to happen where people were killed if they were called peasants, and then it was pagans, and then you worship the devil if you don't do anything but worship God. And I think that has just contained people in fear and separation. And look at what COVID did as well. That brought up fear and separation. And the shadows of our society, so this is looping back to the rising of the feminine, is that she's coming up to show us everything that's been in our shadows of society is actually now coming up to show us what no longer serves us and what disempowers us. And it can look quite scary because it can look very overpowering and over controlling. And, we're seeing war still. And it's like a massive detox. Mm-hmm. It's like a rush of water, which is what the feminine is. And it's about kind of really rising up to show us what we need to clear, which we will see in ourselves as well.
I like that term, detox. I'm assuming that might have something to do with moving from the 3D world to the 5D world.
We can't access 5D. We're in fear and separation. So to access that higher vibration, which for me is about being in the heart, that heart consciousness, we have to look at our lower vibrations. So if you think about shame and guilt, there's something like 30 hertz. It's very, very low, which has, again, the same frequency of lead. So alchemy is taught with through the fire, you bring what turn lead into gold. So how can we transmit these low vibrational energies consciously to a high vibration, to be of love, joy, and peace?
That's great. Is there an easy way to do that, or it doesn't sound easy?
It's not easy if you're not conscious. If you're conscious of it, it's easier. So, for instance, if you're going through a torrid time of a relationship of one individual and you kind of go, oh, this is just awful, and you're just going in this massive whirlpool of just guilt, shame, fear, anger. If you can't get off that loop by recognizing that actually this situation is here to present to me some low vibration stuff that I'm carrying, for me to shift it and detox it. As soon as you can go, well, what's this teaching me? What am I learning from this? You have an objectivity to have then the opportunity to go, well, I don't continue this cycle. I choose to be of love. I choose to be of joy, of peace. And then you start to get this equilibrium, this moment of bit like between how I'm feeling it now, between the changing of the tides. There's that moment of stillness, that moment between when you take your next breath. There's that point of when you discern as to what you need and what you don't need. And that is the magical moment of when you go, well, I don't want that anymore. I heal it. And that is the divine feminine as well. It's that moment of stillness that you can hold for yourself to go, I no longer need that vibration. What I'm wanting from that person is more respect. Well, actually, what I need to do is I need to give myself more respect. I need to love myself more. And as soon as you change that vibration of who you are, that's done.
Really?
Because, if we're ultimately energetic beings, energy attracts energy. So when you start to recognize the frequency that you're at, your subconscious, because that plays out for 99% of our thoughts and our actions. So we have to try and do a lot of conscious work to connect to that, to go, are you actually working on my favor here? Are you creating what I really want? Is your coordinate set up to be what I actually desire? You can then start flushing out, detoxing all these lower vibrations through this life and through your unconscious body that you've inherited through our ancestors. Not just our DNA, we inherit emotions too. So there's a lot of trauma that's gone on in this lifetime in humanity, and we're here to break those patterns and to shift it.
So those patterns can be inherited from ancestors in terms of vibrating at a certain frequency. It'd be really cool if there were an app like your iWatch or otherwise your phone that you could look at it and say, oh man, I'm only at like 44 hertz. I got to up my game.
I think there could be something in that, Johnny. I think there even are some form of devices that you can attach to yourself to see what frequency you're at.
There would have to be, right?
I think there is. There's something called Q, I'm sure. Anyway, it's something that you can actually read your frequency. I mean, they can put devices on trees and attune it to certain chords, and the trees will sing back.
Interesting.
If they record in trees, we can start, just know our symphony. What's our tune we're playing?
Since we're talking about frequencies and alchemy, you believe that, well, actually, this is a common belief that man has become fixated on gold, money, and also women and control for thousands of years. What's the easiest explanation for that? And what else do we need to know?
Good one. Well, this has come up for me the last few months, which includes the Sardinia, and it's all about money, sex, power, control, and how the feminine energy is the gold. It's that fertility. It's that creation. And this relates back to the Greek mythology that was coming up, which was Persephone, who was taken by Hades or Pluto, and taken down into the earth. But what came up from that was non-consensual. It wasn't his to take. And there's been this fixation of when girls come to a certain age, they're whipped off, they're taken. And it's like they were possessions. And so sex and money sort of are really interlinked. And the gold aspect, when I connected to Persephone, this part, the feminine energy that got taken underground, she's gold. This whole healing of this feminine line that's coming up. When you listen to what happened in Atlantean time, it was the fixation to try to create through on the earth and take that fertile, that life force of what creates life, that magic energy. that has you and I here right now and everybody else. There's an attempt to bring science to manipulate that, whereas actually science can't do that. And I think this is what's coming up. And Persephone, when I've connected to her, she is like an immortal treasure. So she's been like a sleeping beauty. And when you look at that and you go through the story of this pomegranate seed going underground, you talk about Sleeping Beauty, where she took the apple seed. There's so much correlation that's links back to this. And this is about the feminine coming back. And actually, science now are getting confused because they're actually seeing what they call wobbles of muons, particles on quantum physics. They're starting to see that there's a fifth elemental force coming into our planet right now.
So Persephone, right? Is Persephone from the Atlantean times? And if so, your connection with her, is it strictly through channeling? Is it just reaching across the veil? What exactly is it?
So Persephone is like the Greek version of Mother Earth's daughter who got taken. So it's that fertile, the maiden energy. My connection has really come from her, from being in Sardinia, where I was on the sand and channeling and just being in meditation, and I was just drawing these shapes coming forwards and feeling her. And Pluto's involved with this. So Pluto, if you're an astrologist fan, he's actually in retrograde and he's bringing up everything since 2008, where he went into Capricorn, where the banks, the Laham brothers went under, which again is linking to money. He's literally skirting the bottom and bringing everything back up for us to work through as a society and individually too. But for me to access her, it is through more meditation.
More meditation. Okay. So if you were to try and explain this to a bunch of like 9th grade history students, what would you tell them?
I think what I would do would actually get them to connect to themselves. I would have them put their hands on their hearts and start to tune them back into their body. Because ultimately I can come up with so many different words of what I can relate to communicate it back out. However, everyone's truth is actually within them. And your heart is where your truth is. That's where your innate wisdom and your guts. So for me to waffle on to somebody, I believe it's more for them to find it.
Rather than try to get it from an external entity, which is why I brought up the church, suppressing our mystic and shamanic past, which if you think about it, shamanism is probably 40, 50,000 years old, if not older. And that's not even counting going back to Atlantean times. And I'm sure they had their practices and their modalities as well. I had someone on the show, her name is Betty Kovach, and her point was the church basically inverted the myth and made us worship a God outside of us instead of within us. Mm-hmm. And every time I talk to an intuitive, including today, the conversation eventually goes to the answers are from within, right?
Correct. Yep. Everything's within us. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we're 70% water. The planet's 70% water. It carries the memory of everything. Even the universe, they say that water wasn't actually here. It came through the universe to come to our planet. So we carry the wisdom of absolutely everything already in us.
It's hard for a lot of us to imagine that. I'm not saying I don't believe it. It does make sense to me, but to tell someone everything's within you, I think you have to agree that it sounds like a big ask. Does it not?
Totally. Because we've been conditioned there's everything's outside of us that we need to know, so our schooling system, everything is like you need to know all these maths, which actually when you come to it, you don't, unless you're going to design some rockets or, so we don't necessarily know everything from outside of us, but do we need to know that? So actually the concept is everything I need to know is within me. But we even carry the vibration and frequencies. We literally, as we come here as dust, we leave as dust, and we're all coming back up and rising up from the same earth. So we're all carrying like a vibration intelligence of everybody else. So we are all interlinked.
All connected.
Yeah. And our brains can't compute. And this is why the heart intelligence comes in, because that's 5,000 times the frequency of our mind.
5,000 times.
5,000 times. So our hearts are frigging powerful, and our brains will always want to categorize things. That's just how it rolls. Whereas with the heart, when it's in that vibration of love, it's very all true and expansion, and that's where we all connect.
So speaking of the heart, how do we start what you describe as a heart conscious revolution to liberate ourselves and our souls and humanity for that matter?
We have to start going within. We have to create time for ourselves. We have to start do the self-reflection work. And when things aren't playing out for us, rather than projecting it or blaming others and separation, we have to start taking responsibility to understand what's happening within us. What's our vibration? What frequency are we generating to attract those behaviors? You start that process and you start to understand yourself better. You start to have a higher perspective on things. That's when you start to come out from fear and more into love space. You hold a higher perspective on situations. So you can start holding more compassion for other people, even though they may be different, but you're more accepting of that difference. That's when you start to weave this web or ladder for us as a collective to start to rising up. That's how I see it. It's the internal work that we need to work on ourselves.
Which seems to be pretty well aligned with moving from 3D to 5D, moving away from fear towards a group consciousness, right?
Yeah. And I saw at the very beginning of COVID was this massive web of light, and it was connecting everybody. It's a real weird one because there's an element of trust to it. You have to sort of surrender to it, to the innate wisdom that's in you to allow you to take those little steps. And because for a lot of us, letting go of control is huge. It's a massive illusion that we believe that we have, that we can control things. The only things we can actually do is control our thoughts. Even that we can sometimes have trouble with, but our actions, and everything else is beyond us.
The grand illusion is we can control things other than our thoughts and even our emotions. Correct?
Okay. Yeah. But when you're in more consciousness, you can start to really work through your thoughts and your emotions, rather than the subconscious playing out the same stories and patterns that have been basically there for generations.
So being heart powered is the answer.
I believe so.
Heart over mind. Okay, I like that. I don't think we can really wear out that expression, at least not anytime soon. So last question. Mm-hmm. Imagine a world where money didn't exist and time didn't equate to money, that the only true currency was joy and self-worth. Is this a marker of an advanced civilization that maybe did exist before and or one that will exist in the future?
Yes, I believe for everything that's been coming through is, yes, there's going to be a big shift. It can seem quite out there right now. I think, how on earth does that ever change when we've got a whole world fixated on money and earning it to survive and to live? However, there's a real shifting of vibration of why we do things, and it's for the joy of it. Anything that's doing it because we think we should be doing it is just going to collapse. It's just a very low guilt, shame vibration. You do something because it's joy and you're coming from a space of self-expression. That's your self-worth. You're owning it. You're owning who you are, what you're here for, your soul purpose, your divine feminine energy that's actually your blueprint for everything that you are here to do. You start to live life in your joy, in your purpose, in your passion. This then creates the vibrations and the continuous energy and what you gain from that. And that's just a massive higher energy for us to interact. And yes, I believe it happened before. I don't think there was money before. Money, I think, just has created separation and division. And I have been shown that it will be different. Ditch your perceptions of money because something's going to change and it's going to be good. It's going to be very good. I haven't been shown any more than that. And I don't even know when that's going to happen, but there is a definite...
Because you knew that was my next question. When's that going to happen?
When's it going to happen?
It's probably going to happen in our next 2 or 3 lives. It's probably not going to be this one, but I've been privy to certain discussions. And like I said before, I don't know whether that's going to happen, but I've been told A, it has happened before, and B, it will and may even be happening right now in other galaxies or other worlds that we're not really exposed to yet, right?
As you said that, I had this sense of, yes, it's happening out already, but never paradigm. Because we've got different paradigms going on all the time. It feels like it's bringing together, but lots of our other paradigms have been from fear-based and negative responses that have created these shards of energy going off all in the different directions. We're bringing it all together, but we have to heal those low aspects to be able to come to that higher.
That sounds really, really interesting. And I'm looking forward to the day or the time that becomes a reality here on Earth, although it might not be in this lifetime. In the meantime, is there anything else that we need to know?
I think we have to trust, and we have to make sure we spend time for ourselves to really start diving deep and to know that you have a choice, and that choice is your power. And it's only fear that tells you don't have a choice. So we start claiming back, and we know we've got choices. We can make changes, of conscious choices, basically, to make these changes that we desire in our own lives and the whole world itself.
I like it. Moving away from the fear. Excellent. Mm-hmm. Gemma, thanks so much for joining us today. In the meantime, how can our listeners find you online?
Okay, so the best way would be, website is theinfinityhealthhub.com, where you can subscribe for free for elements of my work that I'm putting out there as well. Instagram, The Infinity Health Hub, and Facebook as well.
I will put those links in the transcript and the show notes as well. You've been listening to Closer to Venus. I'm Johnny Burke. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing. In the meantime, you can find more info on closertovenus.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.